Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Home Tech Podcast. I'm Seth Johnson, joined by Jason Disruptive Griffin. Jason, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm such a disruptor, Seth.
Disruptive. We're all disruptors.
Oh, man. Yeah. No, life has been a little disrupted lately. I'm getting settled into my new house. I'm happy to say we got the big move done. Still got some work to do at the old place, but I'm sitting here in a very empty basement recording on a non-typical setup, and was excited to share some news about my new house. But Seth, I understand you're going to one-up me. You've got some very big news yourself that you want to share with the audience here.
Yeah. Well, I got my own disruptive news too. My wife and I are excited to announce that we're having a baby girl. So
that is awesome.
Yeah, really excited about it.
Congratulations, man. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm not giving you the wipe warmer though.
Well, I'm gonna have to make another one, I guess.
Maybe. But you got the first one under your belt, so
right. Yeah. I got the prototype made. No.
It only took you like a year.
Yeah, it's probably gonna take me that long again.
Yeah.
I got about that long anyway, so if I start now.
Start now, exactly. Well, that's great, man. I'm really happy for you. It's definitely it's a quite a journey, and I think you're gonna love it. And so my all my best to you and yours. That's great news.
I appreciate it.
Well, speaking of great news, we've got another a fun episode here, and I want to acknowledge quickly, like I said, I'm recording in a non-typical setup here, so apologies if my audio quality is not what it typically is, but I think we got a great show. We had Simon, and I'm sure he's listening, and I apologize, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation here, Simon Tchedikian. And hopefully I got that right. He's the CEO of SevenHugs. And if you're not familiar, SevenHugs is a smart home company. They've got a couple of products, but the one mainly that we are focusing on is a new one that they're still working on and getting ready to ship. And it's the smart remote. And Seth, you know me, I love this product on a number of fronts. So I was really excited to have Simon on.
Oh yeah, I've never heard somebody so happy and excited.
You could hear me. You could just hear me glowing through the.
I thought I was excited.
Yeah, it's a cool little product. I won't spend too much time on it. Be sure to stay tuned for the entire interview. Definitely worth your time and worth a listen. But it's a physical handheld remote that you can use to control various devices in your home. But it's got a really unique design. And it's what they have decided to call a contextual remote. So it's got some intelligence built into it. That allows it to determine what device in your home you're pointing at, and it's got a little touch screen on it that will automatically adapt according to what device you're pointing it at. It can control things like thermostats and smart lights and audio visual. So a really neat idea and a progressive approach to controlling smart home devices, and I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, it was a fun form factor too. I don't know. We'll talk more about it, I'm sure, in our interview there. But it's a very cool product, and you have to take a look at how it actually looks. It's kind of hard to describe, so just you have to see it. It's one of those things you really have to see.
Yep, absolutely. But in typical fashion here, before we do that, we're going to touch on a few news stories. And before we get into the news, I just want to send a quick thank you to our listeners. Remind you that show notes for this episode can be found at HomeTech.fm/115. You can go there, and you can also learn more about supporting the show if you go to HomeTech.fm/support. If you're a fan of the show and you enjoy it and you want to help support us to bring more episodes like this one to you, again, go to HomeTech.fm/support. And give us a shout on Twitter at HomeTech Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. But enough with self-promotion, Seth. Let's jump into the show here. And the very first thing that we wanted to touch on is Apple's Developer Conference is starting next week, June 13th through the 17th. And I know there has been some speculation about potentially Apple coming out with what we're calling #Siri in a can. And I want to get your thoughts on it one more time here before we go to press, so to speak. Do you think it's coming?
Well, I no. I mean, come on. It's one of those things, like, you really have to temper your expectations for this particular conference, because it is a developers conference. It's not this conference core audience isn't the general public, but it has gotten pretty famous to where this is where they announced the new iOS versions. They announced the new software, OS 10 versions, and the new software and integrations that go along with that. So it's always it's a very exciting time to see where the roadmap for Apple is going to lead moving into the fall. But I don't know. I'm really hopeful we'll see a Siri in a can, and I think Apple, I feel like it's one of those things where like, okay, everybody says they have to do something now, but Apple's never really done that. Like they've always waited and kind of, marched to their own drum. So
right.
Like, I'm not going to say like 100% it's going to come out. I'm kind of still at edge. I'm almost like 50-50. Like it could come out, it could not.
Oh man, I want to ask you to stick to one. I'm going to stick to my guns. I feel like it's too rushed for Apple, and I just don't see them. I don't see them doing it. I don't see them doing it at this. I do see them within the next 12 months easily, probably coming out with something, I would say, but I'm gonna fall down on the side of no, we are not going to see something.
You've been burned way too many times.
If you are a listener to the show, you know that I'm a horrible predictor of Apple news, so take that for what it's worth.
well, I think you and I both will be entertained. We'll both be in our Slack channel, the Hub, which our Patreons are all in there, and we'll gather around. We've had a couple of real fun conversations that have happened there in the Hub during the WWDC keynote, and of course on Twitter, you can follow along at HomeTech Podcast. So again, sorry for the self-promotion, but that's where we'll be, and generally tweeting things out and kind of doing that kind of thing.
No, and it's a fun time to do that, definitely, to engage and just get people's feedback. These are the fun events that we all look forward to as fans of home technology and just technology in general. All the big developer conferences are always good, and we look forward to those. So let's move on here. Seth, I think you had a follow-up point. I know we've been, speaking of the Hub, this has been going on in our Slack channel. There's been a bit of a dialogue, and it sounds like you got a follow-up point on your cutting the cord adventure here.
Yeah, I've been disrupted. There's a theme tonight, guys.
It's a week of disruption. Yeah.
So I guess if this was a client's house, I would have actually done this research early on and realized it's something I can't do. But when I was talking last week, super friend of the show, Richard Gunther, heard me talk about the particular model of TiVo that I had. Well, it turns out that TiVo doesn't have a ATSC tuner built into it like the lower end models do. Like I got the bigger one because why not? Bigger's better, right? Well, no, it's missing this one feature. There's posts all over TiVo's forums about it. There's a nice comparison chart I'll put in the show notes.
Disrupted.
Yeah, Richard was right. Hashtag. Yeah, Richard was right.
It wouldn't be a home tech podcast without a mention of Richard. It seems to be a theme lately.
Well, yeah, I think I don't really want to thank him for pointing that out to me, but it's nice that he did. And he was very nice to do it the way he did. So,
and I know he listens every week, so I'm sure he'll hear this and probably get a laugh out of it.
Yep, definitely. Speaking of other companies that have been disrupted, Staples is out. They're gone.
They are. Yeah, it looks official. I saw a story here from Dave Zatz at Zatz Not Funny, and not surprising. We had talked about this a few weeks ago, and it was really making its rounds around the whole technology blogging and writing space. And so everybody saw this coming, at least for a number of weeks, and looks like Staples has made it official. They're going to stop selling the product, but thankfully for people who have purchased the product and perhaps are fans of it and want to continue using it, it does look like they will continue to receive support, albeit maybe in a slightly limited fashion. But at least they're not going to be, completely dealing with a paperweight or a jar of hummus, right?
Right. The Revolve, yes.
Yes.
I was just doing a quick search. Episode number 7 for us, HomeTech.fm/shows/7. That's when we talked about Staples Connect. And
how funny.
Yeah, that was back in March of 2014. So 2 years ago, we looked at the product, said it was pretty good. 2 years later, it's going off the market. Kind of sad, but not. I guess it's something that you and I have seen happen so many times. It's like I'm jaded to these things when they happen. Like I do feel sorry for people who have invested in these, but again, with the Staples, they were actually leaning on other people's technologies, other third-party technologies, like they should be. So if you ended up with the Staples Connect, it's gone. but the majority of your system can be controlled some other way, which is really good. I think they did this product right, and they weren't the ones behind it. It was ZoneOff, but I think that the integrations were done right and done with kind of a future proofing in mind.
Yeah, and it looks like ZoneOff and Z-Wave are joining up forces, so to speak, to continue supporting it. It wasn't totally clear to me from reading it, like what the implications would be if you were using the Staples Connect in conjunction with Lutron. But like you alluded to, you would still, and you've always, even if you were using the Staples Connect hub, you've always had the option to control your Lutron devices from, the Lutron app. So it's not like you're completely out of a way to control those devices. One thing I saw that Staples was doing that I thought was nice, if nothing else as a gesture, is they're offering a $50 gift card to anybody who purchased the Staples Connect. And I have to wonder if there was somebody at Staples who was watching the whole Revolve PR debacle and thinking to themselves, hey, maybe we should try to get out in front of this thing.
Yeah, you grab that $50 gift card, and I guess you can pick up some papers and Staples and pins. That's too bad, huh? Like they really had a shot at this, because as they were coming on board, Radio Shack was just going away, and by all accounts, they were set up to do things right. But man, I just the execution didn't happen. I'm gonna talk about Richard Gunther again. Like he's been very diligent in covering how badly they have botched it. So it's too bad, because they really could have had something for. Staples could have been the office place, but it also could have been the place where you went to demo and check out home automation products, and that would have been pretty nice, because there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, they certainly had the muscle to get behind it if they chose to, but perhaps they underestimated what it would take, or maybe just lost the inertia. Who knows? But these things happen. They come and go, and thankfully, if you did purchase the device, A, you are going to continue to receive some amount of support, and B, you're out, what? I don't even remember what these things were going for, $50, $100, something like that.
I think it ranged from around $100 to $200.
Yeah.
I think the newer one is $150.
So you're not talking about like a, $20,000 light touch system, right?
Yeah, salt in the wounds.
Whole nother can of worms there, but
That's what happens when our systems die off.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on here, though. We've got other news in large companies that are struggling, and this has been a recurring theme here for the last couple of months. And again, I would put this under the category of something that people aren't terribly surprised. I know I wasn't terribly surprised to hear about it, but it looks like Tony Fadell at Nest is quote unquote stepping down, being fired, whatever it is. But he's on his way out. He's going to become some sort of advisor. I don't know. Clearly, this has been a debacle, and with the amount of resources and muscle behind Nest following that $3 billion acquisition, it's just still astonishing to me. I was sitting here really reflecting on this again tonight. I know we've talked about it numerous times, but just thinking about this, and it's crazy. After Nest was acquired, they went from I read in a particular story 280 employees up to 1,200. So they had 1,200 employees working there for the last whatever it was, couple of years, a little more than that, and nothing really to show for it. And I don't care what Tony Fadell says, they haven't done really anything in the last couple of years other than put out a rebadged drop cam. And I mean, that's it. And so he can.
Well, and they did make a thermostat with a smaller bezel.
Yeah, fair enough. And so it's just shocking to me. I mean, that's 1,200 presumably very talented people that spent 2 years toiling on things just to have them canned and put on the back burner, or have somebody at the highest level of Nest change their mind and scrap all their work. And it's just kind of depressing when you think about it in that way. What this sort of resources in terms of money and people could have been doing for the last couple of years could have been something really impressive and game changing. Instead, we've got really nothing.
Yeah, we've got a whole nother team at Google putting together what's called Google Home. I mean, why isn't there a Nest Home? It is, from that respect, it is definitely pretty, I would say, insulting, especially considering how much Google has paid for Nest. which was around that $3 billion mark. That's when all this was going crazy. I remember when all this happened. Like, we were sitting back going, what just happened here? Is Control4 going to get acquired by Google or Apple, or is Savant going to get acquired by somebody? Like, this market was going nuts there for a while. Every other Kickstarter, it seemed like, was coming out with a new hub, and I was ringing the bell over there like crazy. And all that's kind of died down. People have shipped product. Entire ecosystems have evaporated and disappeared, and Nest is still shipping the same SKUs that it was 2 years ago. Just amazing.
Yeah,
just amazing.
It is. And so I think the bigger question is where do they go from here? And we've spent a lot of time talking about Nest, and I certainly don't want to kick a dead horse or rehash everything that we've talked about. I just think that it is interesting to think about now, what does Nest do from here? And the gentleman that they're bringing in, Marwan Fawaz, I'm probably mispronouncing that, but it sounds like he's got, an interesting background in sort of this theme that I've been hearing people talk about, is that, working in mergers and acquisitions, and there seems to be some sort of implication to his selection as the new CEO. And perhaps that's just people speculating, who knows? But it is interesting to think about. Will Nest go up on the selling block? I mean, it's almost unfathomable if you would have said that a year ago or a year and a half ago. To even the fact that we're sitting here and having this conversation, right, is surprising. But I think it's a real possibility. I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to speculate on that one way or the other. But it's certainly a worthy thing to a worthy thought exercise, right, with this guy's background. So very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go that far. I think Nest is at Google or Alphabet or whatever the heck you want to call the company to stay. And the reason I have behind it, I mean, well, first off, it's interesting to see where Tony Fadell is going to be, like, and what he's going to do. Yes, he's a polarizing character, and but his team did come up with the Nest thermostat, which is arguably one of the most famous home automation devices on the planet at this point in time.
Oh yeah.
So let's give him that. And what is he going to do? I don't know if he's going to get near home automation again, but what other cool product is he going to come out with?
He's going to disrupt.
Is he going to disrupt? Yes, he's going to be the disruptor in chief. So yeah, that's cool. Now let's switch gears. We're on the positive gears. Good for Tony. Good for Nest. This guy Marwan Fawaz. We're going for 2 for 2 on names today.
Yeah.
So
right.
He's got a pretty interesting background in cable and big major cable, like the back end cable stuff, like Motorola Home and all that stuff. My thought behind all this is that Nest is going to shift into we may need a bell for this one, service company.
We do need a sound effect for that.
Yeah. So think about this. If in fact there is a Nest Home or a Nest Security type device, right? Like one that could actually have existed, and Tony Fadell said, no, I don't like that. What if it's sitting there getting dust on the shelf like my Amazon Echo, and they pull it off
nice.
And start shipping this thing, and it's good enough for a small home security system?
Yeah.
Why not have a home security system that's integrated with your, first party integrated with your Nest thermostat and drop cams? That seems like a pretty compelling product. And if they can make a little money off of it for, monitoring, that sounds like even more compelling product. Obviously the drop cam team is doing that. So, my hope is for Nest is that, this gentleman, Marwan Fawaz brings in the experience that is needed to transition Nest from being like this product company into being more of a services company that offers these products that sit on top of the services. And if they can do that, I think they have a long road ahead of them, right? Because it's everybody wants to have some of that, recurring monthly revenue.
Oh yeah.
So, and if Nest can show that they're making money that way, clearly Dropcam could. I mean, clearly people want to pay Dropcam money to store videos of, their cats running around inside their house, like that.
I do.
Yeah, there you go. So it's good money there. And why not get this product that's, this Nest security product shipping and get it into the hands of people and actually do something with it that makes the company money.
Yeah, it's a great point. I know that Marwan Fawaz is currently on his LinkedIn page and is listed a technical advisory board chair at ADT. So there is a direct security tie-in. I know that some of the more recent stories that we heard about the struggles at Nest alluded to a project that was the code name or the working title was Project Flintstone, and it was some sort of security offering that they were looking at, and one of the employees, I guess internally, it was being called Tombstone because it had been shelved so many times, and I thought that was pretty hilarious. But it's clearly one of the things that we've talked about is when they acquired Dropcam, it was kind of sad and a little depressing that they shelved this Dropcam tabs deal that Dropcam had going on, where it was like these little sensors, motion sensors, I think they were, that you could put in your home and they would basically detect, essentially become like a little security system. And so I think it would be a natural direction for Nest to head in. I think you're absolutely right in terms of everybody wants a piece of services right now and the recurring revenue that comes with them. And so I think clearly that'll be something that Nest looks at. I think you're right. I don't see Alphabet, cutting the cord, so to speak, if you pardon the pun there, on Nest entirely right now. That's $3.2 billion is an awfully big investment to walk away from. And so I think that this could be a good thing for Nest, which I think is what you were getting at. And hopefully it'll re-inject some energy into the company and we'll see some good things. I want to see Nest succeed. I think that you make a great point. It's one of arguably the most successful home technology, home automation type product that we've ever seen. It's one of the few things that I get asked about by name by clients, architects, and builders. I would say at least once a week. At a minimum, Nest comes up once a week, and it's a product that we don't actively sell. We're not, opposed to working with it, but it's not like we're out actively seeking conversations about Nest. It's got that kind of a footprint and that kind of a presence in the market and in people's minds. And so I think if Nest can turn around these recent struggles and see some success, I think a rising tide raises all ships. And I hope the best for them. I think it's been a rough couple of months, and I can't imagine that it's been a fun time to work at Nest. And so I have to think that there are some people there who are, if quietly, cheering inside, that maybe this will bring some life back into the company, and who knows what'll come of it.
Maybe they can be a little disruptive.
Who knows? Maybe. We'll see.
Oh man, that article or that blog post that he wrote about being disruptive was
self-righteous.
It was a bit over the top.
Yeah.
But, oh man, so that's where all the disruptive words have come from.
Yeah.
But,
in case you didn't catch that, yeah. we were pretty subtle about it.
Too much on the nose. Is that what you're saying?
All right. Well, let's jump into our interview here. Again, we had Simon Tchedikian on, CEO of 7Hugs. They're a company that's got this new smart remote coming out. Really cool product. If you're interested in seeing, what it looks like, head over, check out the show notes. We'll include a picture up there, HomeTech.fm/115. And without further ado, let's get started with our interview. Hey, Simon, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hello. Thank you very much for hosting me. I'm doing well.
Great. You? I'm doing very good. We're really excited to have you on. I think the 7Hugs Smart Remote looks like a really cool product. It's definitely one that I've been keeping an eye on, and we're looking forward to exploring that, learning a little bit more. But before we do that, why don't you give our guests a little bit of a personal introduction and maybe talk about your background, even going back maybe prior to 7Hugs.
Okay. Well, I'm Simon Tchedikian, co-founder and CEO at 7Hugs. Before 7Hugs, in fact, I have electrical engineering and signal processing background, microelectronic. And for more than 15 years, I've been working in the mobile chipset industry. So before 7Hugs, I was in charge of 3G chipset development and then in charge of a team for a Taiwanese company. So and this is where I also met my co-founders, Stéphane, Lionel, and Olivier. Together, we were actually working for a Taiwanese corporation which was developing 2G, 3G, and 4G chipsets for handset phones. So we were doing all the electronic inside the phone, the main telecommunication system. And we have been doing that for more than 15 years together.
Very cool.
So that's my background. Yeah.
And you guys are based in France, correct?
Yeah, actually, this is changing because
okay.
the team so far was based in France. I'm personally moving to San Francisco, and I have opened an office here. And we already have a VP of sales, which is based in San Francisco, and hiring marketing director, and we'll basically build the sales and marketing team here in the US. And the R&D for now is staying in Paris.
Got it. Very cool. Well, let's talk about the company first before we get into the specific product. I know that the company name is SevenHugs, and tell me the background and kind of how you founded the company. And also, I'm curious to know where the name came from.
Yeah, that's a question we get often.
I'm sure.
In fact, when we created SevenHugs, we were all dads, and we were really passionate about technology and love to bring new technology at home. And we noticed that our wives, our children were not that excited because of the complexity of using them. Really, we created SevenHugs for one main reason, is make sure that we were able to bring technology and that technology was usable by everyone in the home, and not only the geek, the early adopter, but people that are less tech familiar with tech, and children. And the three initial founders of SevenHugs have 7 children. So every night we do 7Hugs, and that's where the name came from.
Oh, that's pretty good. I'm looking at your website right now, and one of the products that you have on here, besides the smart remote, which we'll cover in a little bit, is the Hug One, which is, it looks like a whole house sleep monitor, so to speak. Do you want to touch on that briefly?
Yeah, briefly is so many activity tracker are sold. It's almost between 30 to 40 million every year. And we noticed that this activity tracker also tracks sleep, but do it individually. And for ourselves, we were thinking that why should we track sleep only for ourselves and not track sleep for everyone in the home, and especially for our children? So we made the Hug One actually to address that, because children as well have sleep troubles, and 1 out of 4 kids has a sleep trouble. So that's quite huge, and the sleep troubles are the same as the adults. Almost like even sleep apnea can happen to children. So we decided to do a sleep tracking device that is adapted to be used by everyone in the home, including the children. So it's small sensors that you put in each bed, and then you can track the sleep, the room temperature, room humidity. You can regulate and better improve the sleep quality through the regularity of everyone's sleep. And the Hug One also connects to the Nest thermostat and the Philips Hue, so you automatically regulate the home temperature whenever everyone is sleeping, and regulate the lights in the bedroom as well for the night to help you fall asleep, and in the morning to wake you up naturally.
That's a very cool product. I mean, I can tell you from someone who actually does suffer quite a lot from sleep apnea. Just tracking and knowing how much sleep you're getting, and when you are waking up in the night, you don't even know you are. This kind of device is pretty huge. So I just wanted to touch on that briefly because it looked like a cool product. But I know we came here to talk about the remote. Let's talk about the remote. This is cool. I can't tell you how excited Jason was when he saw this.
Yeah.
So I guess what's the elevator pitch behind the remote?
Remote is very simple. We get more and more connected device in the home, and it's getting very frustrating to interact with all these devices, because if you use your mobile application, you have to unlock the phone, find the right app, select the device you want to control, and control it. That's at least 4 to 5 steps every time you want to control a device, and that's assuming you have all the application on your mobile phone. And of course, if you have children, then they don't have mobile phones, they don't have smartphones. So we made a device which is universal. That means you can control anything, and that can be used by everyone in the home. And that was our main focus. And we thought about, okay, because we are passionate about technology, we love to add things like connected lights, thermostats, door locks in our own homes. But every time we were adding a device, then we were having the problem of being the only one being able to interact with them. So we made this smart remote, which is a contextual remote, means the screen adapts automatically to a device you point to. And that way, anybody in the home can use it. And in a very simple way, because you just need to point to a device you want to use. So it's so simple that you don't even need to explain anything to someone, that you just give a remote and say, just point to whatever you want to control. And then this, for example, you point to your light, then the screen, it's a touch screen, high quality touch screen, like a smartphone quality, will automatically show you the controls that you can act with when pointing to that light, for that light you're pointing to. So point to your TV and you will be able to change the channel. The screen will automatically change. If you point to your music system, then it will show you only the volume and track controls, so etc. So and furthermore, what we are doing is we are integrating services. For example, we already integrated Uber, so you point to your front door and you can order Uber drive. You point to your windows and you can get the weather forecast outside. So and we have many IDs and we have Open API and SDK, so that anybody can also add new interactions with a smart remote.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I love the look of the product, and I would encourage anybody who's listening who hasn't seen the product to go take a look, and we'll surely include some links and a picture at HomeTech.fm/115, which will be the link to this episode. And to me, it looks like it's about the size of maybe about an Apple TV remote. Would you say that's about an accurate description of the size?
Yeah, it's very close to the Apple TV, slightly bigger, I think. Yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, it looks like it's really got a nice hand feel and a really nice touch screen on it. And this idea of a contextual remote, I love. Seth kind of alluded to it, and I've really been on the show for a couple of years harping on this idea of we need more physical control options, and everything, for a long time has really been moving towards the use of an app exclusively to control things. And I think you point out very effectively some of the drawbacks that are associated with that. And so I love the idea of just having this physical handheld purpose-built device that you can use to control various devices and systems in your home. And you talk about being able to point it at the Nest thermostat, for instance, or you alluded to the front door to get an Uber, which I think is a very cool idea. Let's talk about that. Let's drill down on that idea just a little to help people understand, how does that work? How does the device know? How does the remote know what device you're pointing to?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, in fact, we sell the remote, the smart remote, with 3 accessories, which are SevenHugs accessories. These accessories can be bulbs, connected smart bulbs, like a Philips Hue, but with our own technology inside. They can be power sockets, connected power sockets. They can be presence detection. That means it fits on the wall and it detects your presence. And in fact, these accessories have 2 functions. They have their main function. Of course, a bulb will act as a bulb, but will also be used as a beacon. And using these accessories, what we do is we calculate the position of a remote. We do like indoor positioning. We have an indoor positioning technology that calculate the position of remote at 3 to 6 inch precision. And we use also inside the remote, we have motion tracking sensors, which are the accelerometer, the compass, and the gyroscope. And these three components will give us the orientation of the remote. So with its position and its orientation, we know at any time where the remote is pointing to.
That's very cool. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I wanted to chime in there, and you just addressed it sort of, but I want to, point it out specifically because I think it's something that jumped to my mind, and I think other people are probably wondering as well. What happens if I've got two devices that have to live, very close to each other? Maybe a Nest thermostat mounted up on the wall, and some sort of device below it that I also want to control with the smart remote. Is it just a matter of the precision and being able to tell sort of the angle that you're holding the remote at, that it is able to decipher between which one of those two devices you're pointing to?
Yeah, so the remote is quite precise. Actually, we demoed it at several events, including at CES. We were able to point to LED strip, and we were only lighting up the LEDs that we were pointing with a remote. So we were able to really point only to 3 LEDs from the strip. So that was just to show the precision of the remote. Now, of course, it can only always happen that you have two devices very close to each other. In that case, the remote will just ask you to select which one you want to control. So let's say you have your thermostat and a light just below it or just next to it. Then whenever you point into that direction, it will ask you if you want to control the light or the thermostat. It's still going to be less step and more straightforward than having to go through a mobile application.
Sure.
And if you have two devices on the same line of sight, but they are not close to each other, then the remote also has this information of depth. So he will know that one of the devices is closer to you than the other. And by default, it will always control the closest one.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense. Let's talk about the user experience for a second as it relates to if I'm a consumer and ultimately I buy the device. Let's walk through that initial unboxing and setup process. What does that look like?
The smart remote will be sold as a starter kit with 3 accessories and a charging base. So the remote goes on the charging base. It's magnetized so that you can put this charging base on a table, or you can also fix it on the wall. And in that case, you can use the remote as a wall switch, basically. So whenever it's on the wall, if you just touch it, by default, it will control the lights which are in the room. And so you get the starter kit with charging base, the smart remote, the 3 accessories. Will be quite flexible on the accessories. That means people will be able to select which accessory they want with a remote. And you deploy these accessories in your room. And then out of the box, the remote recognizes the position of these accessories and can control them. So just by pointing at these accessories, you will be able to turn on the light if it's a light, smart light, or you can control the socket, power socket, if it's a power socket. Then once you have done that, you can add new devices like the Nest thermostat, the Sonos music system. At that time, you will need the mobile application, which is associated with the product. So on the mobile application, you do the pairing. So you say, I have a Nest. So you go through in the thermostat category, you select the product you have, the device you have. At that point, you do the pairing of the Nest with the 7Hugs smart remote system. And that's it. The next time you take the remote will automatically know that you have added a Nest. It will ask you just to put the remote next to the Nest thermostat and to push the learning button. And that way you teach the remote where the Nest is physically in space. So that every time you point into that direction, you get the home temperature control displayed on the screen of the remote.
That's very smart. Is that companion app that comes along with it, is that both on iOS and Android?
Yes.
Very cool. So you've gone over a couple of different devices here. I've heard thermostat and the Nest mentioned a couple of times, and Sonos. What other devices are you able to control with the remote?
So there are many devices like we have done the integration with LifeX. We are doing it with Wemo, the Belkin products. We have the integration with Philips Hue lights. We will also support things like Insteon and other hubs which are quite famous on the market. That means the Wink hub, for example, as well. We plan to support smart things as well. So for now, what we do is we are constantly adding new support for new devices. And by the time the product is available for pre-order and shipped, then I think we'll be able to support tens or maybe hundreds of devices.
Excellent. And so what I guess I should have asked, would have been a better question to ask, is what categories would you be able to control? So audio in there, thermostats are in there, lighting. Is there anything else?
There is the audio video systems. So we plan to have and offer what we call the infrared blaster, IR blaster. That means it's a product that, because the remote will support Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and we plan to have an additional accessory so that whenever we want to control a TV or audio video receiver that only function with infrared, then we will be able to control it with a remote.
Excellent.
So our end objective is to be able to support everything which is connected to Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or can be controlled by infrared.
Very cool. And you mentioned a third-party API, open API. That leaves open for third-party developers to get involved and maybe write some interesting new integrations that you haven't thought of or you haven't seen of. I always love third-party integrations. So that sounds very exciting. I don't know if there's any more to touch on that, but
we do have Open API. So the Open API will allow the remote to function with other connected light other brands that you have not thought about. But the Open SDK is even more interesting. The SDK is the software development kit that will allow actually to do crazy things. That means you can, of course, completely customize the screen of a remote, but you can actually control things with gesture. You can control a drone. So we got a huge amount of ideas, and we are actually having right now a hackathon on ideas like that. So let's say you could, for example, point to where you want your drone to go, and that could be a fun use case. So the possibilities are limited. So the Open API is really to interact with all connected device in the scope of the ideas that we got for Smart Remote, but the SDK will allow to integrate services as well as doing and integrating ideas that we never thought about.
That's great. I love that idea. And as Seth knows, we joke about it sometimes. I'm a big believer in two things, and you've now hit on both of them. And that's just the idea of, various physical control devices and the idea of gesture control, I think really has legs. And I think it's just a matter of the technology is there, but we just need companies and individuals to think about it creatively and how that can be leveraged. And I don't know that it'll ever be a primary point of a way of controlling our smart homes, but I think that there's definitely a place for it. And so I think that's great that you guys are thinking about that. I was actually had it in the back of my mind to ask about that. Well, speaking of sort of interesting ways of thinking about control in the smart home, Simon, we've been hearing a lot about voice control, and that's been a very hot topic lately with Amazon Echo and now Google Home getting into the space. And we're hearing rumors that Apple may be coming out with something. Are you guys looking at voice control? Are you thinking about it? What can you tell us there?
Yes, actually, I've been using the Amazon Echo as well, and I love it. And I think voice control is really an elegant solution and also very intuitive for home. But we think that it's kind of limited in terms of a number of keywords that you can use, and you have to use the keywords in the same order every time. So we believe that it's very interesting, but still a little bit less intuitive for using on a daily basis to control everything which is connected in the home. So, but definitely voice control is something we are looking at. We are thinking about adding it to the smart remote because we believe that it's really complementary to what we are trying to do, is bringing the contextuality of a remote together with voice control. We can have the best of both worlds.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that definitely sounds like something that would be a nice fit with what you guys are doing in terms of progressively thinking about different ways to control your smart home devices. I want to talk about something a little bit less technical, but more of an end user question, and that is, how does it work if somebody wants more than one smart remote in their home?
Yeah, so this is definitely possible. So that means the smart remote will for example, let's say you have our accessories in different rooms. You can move from one room to the other with the same remote. You can also have two remotes, and they will all remotes will work in any room, in fact. So it's fully compatible. Our end objective is for the smart remote to replace the wall switches, because we believe that wall switch hasn't changed since a very long time. And the wall switch, you can only have two positions, on or off. And we believe that the home will have a complexity of a car in terms of electronic, will have a complexity of a TV. And you cannot add a TV-like remote at the entrance of each room with 50 buttons. So we believe that people need to have a very simple and intuitive way to interact with all their devices. So eventually we believe that there will be a smart remote at the entrance of each room, and will allow you to control all your home, basically.
Right. Well, speaking of that, I wanted to ask you about the decision to keep, the design is very minimalist. There are no buttons included at all. And I want you to just talk about that decision and what the merits are that you guys see in going that route.
Yeah, so we noticed that I actually looked at the history of the remote controller. The remote controller was invented in the 50s, 1950, a wireless remote control. And when it was invented, it had only one button. So a few years after that, the remote controls had 2 to 4 buttons. A few tens of years after that, they had 30 to 50. And now what I see is with universal remotes, every time we want to add a new feature, then we add a new button. And at the end of the day, the user is completely lost because there are so many buttons. It's okay if you're a geek or early adopter and you bought yourself the remote and you configured it yourself. You know which button to push and for what purpose. But this is very limited. So we decided actually to go in a completely different path, where we thought that people were now used to touch screens with their smartphones. And the touchscreen provided unlimited possibilities. And the smartphones only have today 1 or 2 buttons, and actually they tend to disappear. So we thought that was the right solution for home as well, with a touchscreen that automatically adapts to the device you point to. Basically, you don't need a single button. You don't need any button. You just need to point to a device and then touch the screen.
It's definitely a lot more flexible too than having a remote with 30 buttons on it.
Yeah, it's extremely flexible because you can adapt the screen to whatever situation you're in. You don't have to assign a certain function or feature to a certain button, and it's a lot less confusing for people that are not familiar with tech or just want something very simple.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Tell us a little bit about the battery life. How long does the smart remote work on a single charge?
we have estimates for now. We are with the prototypes we have. The battery life is going to be at more than 1 day, but today with our estimates we are at 3 days of battery life. If you use it every day. If you don't use it, it can last for more than a week. But because it's easy to put it back on the charging base, we thought that having more than a day is more than enough, because you usually always put it back on the charging base after you used it. Also, there is one feature that I haven't talked about. It's the ability to find back the remote, because we have been told many times by people that they get afraid to lose the remote. But in the charging base there is a button that lets you find back your remote. It make the remote to ring, and that way you can find it back if you lost it.
That's a great feature to have. My TiVo has that, but my universal remote doesn't. I guess it does. I just haven't programmed it in, but that's a great feature to have. And when do you expect to ship? When do you be able to, or is it still too early to say?
So we will open the pre-orders in September. So we already have almost 20,000 people on our waiting list. We will open the pre-orders in September. We'll have a first batch, which is going to be quite limited, but with a discounted price. It's going to be more than half retail price. And the shipments will be around end of this year or early next year. Pre-orders in September. If people are interested, they can join the wait list on our website, which is remote.7hugs.com, and we'll keep them informed about the launch date.
Awesome. And you said you got 20,000 people on the waiting list?
We got almost 20,000.
Wow. Yeah. That's great. Congratulations on that. And I can't recall, I apologize if we touched on this, but I want to make sure that we do. You alluded to kind of a discounted price right now. What does the remote go for, or what will it go for?
So the retail price of the starter kit of the remote plus the 3 accessories will be $249. And the pre-orders will start for a very limited quantity at $99 and up to $199.
Very cool. I like it. Well, Simon, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show and talking to us about 7Hugs and the 7Hug Smart Remote. If someone wants to learn more or go ahead and pre-order one, where would you say they should go?
Yeah, they can go on our website, which is remote.7hugs.com, and join the waitlist. We also had a huge amount of press coverage since CES in Las Vegas in January. We plan to organize a press tour and test pretty soon with the final version of the smart remote.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on all the success so far, and we definitely wish you the best moving forward with it. I do think it's an exciting product and definitely a progressive way of thinking about control in the smart home. And so I commend you guys for doing something a little bit different, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. In closing, if anyone wanted to connect with you and maybe ask a follow-up question or two, what would be the best way for them to do that?
They can contact us at contact@7hugs.com.
Awesome. Well, we definitely appreciate you coming on the Home Tech Podcast to join us, Simon. And again, wish you all the best moving forward. Take care.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jason, for hosting me. It was a pleasure.